I've always been one of the main people to compare myself to others. That's something that I would say that I did a lot in high school, especially when I first started high school, fresh out of COVID. That was something big that got in my head and just stayed there and affected me a lot. I was very self-conscious, and I low-key wanted attention, I'm not gonna lie. From the way I walked to the shoes I wanted, all of that was based on other people's decisions or preconceived thoughts. I wanted people to think a certain way about me. Even my posture, I wanted to look like like I was cool. I used to walk different and all that. To be honest, I don't know exactly where this came from. I don't know how I ended up thinking in such a way. Maybe it's because I just don't want to be different from everybody else. I didn't want to feel like an outcast in some shape, form, or fashion compared to everyone else. So, I would try to do things to fit the mold of everyone else and do what everyone else is doing. I also think that contributed to me not wanting to be wrong in school, especially like when I knew I had the right answer, but I wouldn't raise my hand because I didn't want to be wrong around people. And someone else would end up raising their hand and, they would say the answer that I was going to say. But I was too afraid. That's how bad it got to me. Some questions in class I didn't even want to answer because of the fear of other people's thoughts. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that despite all the shoes I ended up asking my parents for and all the stuff I ended up getting throughout the time of high school where I did do that, it didn't really do much. And I remember a lot of the times I still felt like nothing accomplished. Don't get me wrong, I like the shoes that I bought or that I asked for, but I would be lying if I was saying that part of it wasn't for other people's validation or other people's looks. I've also been in situations in school where I'll be around a group and we'll all be quiet just standing on our phones. Maybe we're waiting to go into class or we're waiting to enter a building in school. And I don't know why, but I always felt like pressure. It's like kind of a tense air. I really can't explain it exactly, but I always felt something like that. And I would just sit on my phone. I'd look up and I'd look around for a little bit, like quickly, see that everybody else is on their phone, and just go back to being on my phone. I also used to barely talk in school during my initial year of high school after COVID. I didn't talk much until that later half where I got a few friends. And during that stage where I didn't talk a lot, I believe that's when I was the most like self-conscious and I cared the most about other people's opinions. I was always quiet, so I heard a lot about people gossiping about others, and it just made me like even more aware of myself and to try to like fit in and not do something that people are gonna talk about. At the time, I'm not realizing that that's just unavoidable and that's just how life works. But most of what I just explained was my sophomore year. Now my junior year, things did get better. It wasn't as bad. I did talk a lot more. I didn't think about other people's opinions as much. Junior year was a year that I really did enjoy. And as far as my senior year, that's when I started to like pick up the pattern after going through it. How people are, how by the end of senior year, I just accepted it all. How people act, how people talk about other people, the fact that nobody even probably even thinking about me. It was just all in my head. And I believe living like that is a lot better. I should have been a lot more carefree, and especially my sophomore year. I think what helped me not become so self-conscious of myself was me working out, getting bigger, doing that made me more confident in myself. And that's also around the time I started growing out my hair. So it helps me with my confidence. Therefore, I didn't think as much about how I looked to other people. I still had thoughts like that all the way up until my graduation, but it has went down over the years due to me looking different by that point compared to my sophomore year, and just the mindset shift that I had. If I had to say one message, is to just be yourselves and not compare yourself like I did a lot. At the end of the day, we all have time to become the version of ourselves that we want to become. And also because overthinking doesn't solve the issue. Overthinking did nothing for me all those years in school. The only time I wouldn't really overthink is when I was around my homeboys in school. But even later on, that started to change due to how the group dynamic went. But this video was just to spread a bit of awareness about that. I don't know how many people deal with that, but I know I definitely did throughout high school. And I felt like there was a lot of pressure to be something that I just wasn't, or just to fit in, to be honest. But my final thing I'll say for this video, and the one thing you should listen to, if not anything else, is just to live your life without thinking about other people's preconceived thoughts about you. It does nothing for you, so you might as well live the way you want to anyway. Be free of it.